Hi, my name is Lauren, and I wanted to make this video in honor of International ME/CFS Awareness Day, which is coming up on this Saturday, May 12th, 2018. Um, with this day coming up, there will be awareness events in 100 locations across the world, which is just awesome. We are looking for awareness and we're trying to get more funding that's desperately needed for this devastating illness. I wanted to tell you, anyone that's watching this, a little bit about the illness, um, my story with it, and let you know what you can do to help. So, a little bit about ME/CFS. Um, the community, the ME/CFS community, prefers it to be called myalgic encephalomyelitis for its clinical name. Myalgic meaning muscle pain, encephalomyelitis meaning swelling of the brain and spinal cord. Because I guess in autopsies, that's what they see when they do autopsies on ME patients. Um, the old term for this illness is chronic fatigue syndrome, which is a very dated term. It was given that name in the 1980s. That was the intent was to kind of undermine the severity and the devastating nature of this illness. So we call it ME, which is kind of the preferred term, the clinical term, and then slash CFS. It kind of bridges the preferred term versus the old term that people might know. So a little bit about this illness that I've suffered with for half my life since I was 17 and I'm about to be 34 um, is it affects about 1 to 2.5 million people in this country alone. That's about 1 out of 200 people suffer with it to some degree. So if you know 200 people, or if you have 200 Facebook friends, you likely know someone that has it. Um, Out of all those people, only 10% are diagnosed because many doctors will see patients with this and they're not trained on how to spot the symptoms, how to diagnose it. It's only taught in about 1/3 of medical schools, and that's something that we're trying to change with this ME/CFS Awareness Day, Saturday, May 12th. 75% of people with this illness are women, so maybe that's some of the reason why it hasn't been taken seriously and kind of swept under the rug. 25% of people with this illness are either homebound or bedbound at some point with their struggle with this illness. I myself was virtually bedridden, housebound for roughly 2 years. So let me assure you, you really can't imagine unless you've been there what it's like to be, bedridden or you can't leave your house, especially as a young person. Symptoms can last, decades or a lifetime. There are people that are bedridden, housebound, wheelchair bound for decades. They can't leave their house. They can't leave their bed. They can't leave their wheelchair and walk. And recovery is rare. There's only about 5% recovery rate with this illness. So for people that are just kind of sick or very sick with this illness, it's not like you can just go to the doctor and expect that things are just going to get much better for you. So a lot of people are kind of missing that hope that they can be treated. The cost of this illness, the way that people aren't treated for it, and if they're trying to work, that they just can't make it into work. The cost of it to the economy is about 17 to 24 billion dollars annually. So when we talk to lawmakers and try to gain some influence in politics, we know that money kind of talks. So that's something that we mentioned, if there was a treatment for this, we could get people back to work, and that would be wonderful, and we could get get all those people functioning and making that money for the economy. This illness is one of the lowest funded illnesses in terms of medical research. Um, it's funded at the lowest 4% at the NIH. That's coming in, actually got a little bit more money recently in the last couple years. Um, Comes in right above male pattern baldness and hay fever. So, people that are, not that those things aren't, tough for the people that suffer with them, but, we do feel that because this is life-changing illness, people um, lose their entire lives and their quality of life to this illness, and it, destroys families, and, it's so devastating to the people that suffer with it. We feel that's kind of a discrepancy in the terms of funding that it receives. A little bit about my story. I got mono when I was 17 years old, a freshman in college, and a lot of people that get mono, they're sick for a couple weeks or a month, and it sucks, and they recover, and they go on and they live their lives. They're healthy again. I got sick at the age of 17, and I didn't seem to recover like a healthy individual would. I went to, as this kind of went on for months, where I was just so exhausted and starting to get depressed, and started to see doctors and then specialists, and the doctors, would run the blood tests, and the blood tests would, everything would come back normal. Actually, I should have mentioned in the facts that there is no diagnostic test or treatment, FDA-approved treatment for this illness. So when they were running these tests, it didn't pick up anything, and doctors, they're not trained to spot the classic symptoms, which is, unrelenting exhaustion and unrefreshed sleep, and, insomnia, so you're exhausted all day, and then you can't sleep at night. I was presenting all these kind of vague symptoms, and they were saying, just eat better, exercise, and that's why you're not feeling so well. So doctors were telling me there was nothing wrong with me, and I'm just like, okay, well, I just kind of accepted that. I felt like the mono had changed my body somehow, and I was just gonna have to accept that and try to live the best that I could with it. I got depressed, put on a lot of weight, kind of stopped taking care of myself. My body started processing food in a really, really strange way, and yet no one could really tell me what was going on. So luckily enough, I did go on to recover enough to graduate, and I went on to teach high school history for 5 years. I was one of those people that lived for my job. Teaching became my passion. I lived for my students, my coworkers. I moved very far away from home for this job. My coworkers became like my family, and I put everything I had into teaching and creating this life for myself. And what happened is I took a routine antibiotic, and I had a very bad reaction to it. During that time teaching, I was functionally well, and I didn't have enough energy to really consider myself like a fully healthy 20 something year old. I would feel so exhausted by the end of the week that a lot of Fridays, at least once a month, I would have to call into work because I would be just so exhausted, and I would just need to sleep 10 to 12 hours on weekends to kind of prepare myself for the physicality and stamina that you need to teach high school students. So I made it through 5 years of teaching, and I took this routine antibiotic, had a terrible reaction to it, and that kind of started this cascade down of very bizarre, at the time, unexplained symptoms. I started getting very terrible nerve pain in my chest, like burning, like I was being electrocuted, and it just wouldn't go away, and I had to take a medical leave from teaching. And I started having stomach problems, very bad, anything that I was eating was going right through me. And this went on for months and months and months. And then I was starting to notice that I was so tired. I was having a really hard time even making it into school. And my mom had to come and stay with me. And then it became to the point where I would get up and, set 10 alarm clocks to get up and just try to get dressed. And by the time I get dressed, I'd say I just can't make it in. I don't think I can drive there. I don't think I can do another thing today. And on the days that I could make it into work, I would give everything that I had to um, teach my first 90-minute class. And then I would put my head on my desk, and like the room would just be spinning, and I could not lift my head off my desk. Physically could not lift my head off my desk. And I would, call my mom who was staying at my house, and I would be crying, and I would say, I have to come home. And she would say, please, just, you're going to lose your job. You have to try to make it through the day. And I would say, I can't, So I want you to, it must be, if you're trying to empathize, trying to picture how hard it is or how scary and disconcerting it is when your car breaks down. Think of, how helpless you feel, when you're stranded and your car won't start. Imagine that's your body, that you can't move your body. It's terrifying that when your body isn't working right. And this isn't just me. This is common. This is an illness that's more prevalent than MS. It's more prevalent than, diabetes and lung cancer. There's many people that are struggling with this as we speak, and they do not know what is wrong with them. They're going to the doctor, and the doctor doesn't know either. So obviously, that this is why there's this need for this grassroots movement of patients and their advocates to be getting the word out about this illness. So fortunately, I did have a doctor that was able to diagnose me, and the average is that people have to go to 10 different doctors, and it takes an average of 10 years to get finally properly diagnosed for this illness, which in a developed country is just, in developed countries where this happens, is just, is mind-blowing. So fortunately, after I got finally diagnosed, I was so extremely ill, I did have to resign from my teaching career. At the age of 26, I had to retire medically. I had been, loved my coworkers, loved my school, and by the time I left, everybody kind of had it with me and my health. My classes were falling apart and everything was in chaos. And, my wonderful coworkers, they had to pick up the slack for me, and, they didn't know what was wrong with me. They thought I had gone crazy, and I thought I had gone crazy, and it was just better for everyone that I left. Maybe I stayed a little bit too long because I did not want to leave my career, which is, I guess, understandable. It was just a hard thing all the way around. How are you supposed to know what you're supposed to do in a situation like that? You don't. There's no handbook. So anyway, I did spend, after, the trauma that, the emotional piece of that, and, my body had fallen apart, and, crawling around on the floor trying to send in my lesson plan. My body had just had it to the point where I was bedridden and housebound for about 2 years. I would try just to go grocery shopping when I was staying with my parents, and I would just be trying to walk through the store, and I would just leave, where my mom was, and I would go to a different section of the store, and I would just cry because I couldn't walk through a store. That was my life at the age of 26. Not that anyone deserves to have this, but, I was so young, and I had lost everything, and here I couldn't even go grocery shopping, or I couldn't barely leave my bed, and it was terrifying. So over the next few years, I was able to see so many different doctors that were able to give me a small piece of the puzzle. I was able to get diagnosed, and I put myself through trial and error of different medications. I made myself a guinea pig. A lot of the medications made me violently ill, because your body starts to overreact to things. Your immune system is like, well, something's going on, so it starts to overreact to things. You get a lot of sensitivities. I'm wearing these funky nose filters that filter the air that I breathe in my nose because I'm so sensitive to the pollen that's in the air right now. So anyway, what was I even talking about? Oh, so I did find a cocktail of medications that did improve my health, where I regained some functionality. I'm cured by no means. I mean, look at my eyes. That's the one place that I can never really hide my exhaustion and my fatigue. But I'm one of the fortunate ones that I was able to, not spend decades in bed. I was one of the lucky ones that got 2 years thereabouts in bed, and I was able to go on and have some excellent doctors that filled in the pieces, and I was able to find this wonderful community online that taught me so much about ME, CFS. So I was able to go on and create myself a little life, a sick person life, but a little life where I have things that to look forward to, and I create consider myself very fortunate for that. So what can you do? And I'm going to explain these mysterious sounds down here in just a moment. What can you do? If you're my friend or a friend of the family, or someone that's just seeing this video and you want to help. So this Saturday, or anytime that you feel like it, you can wear red and post yourself a picture of yourself wearing red, with the tag #MillionsMissing, to show your solidarity. Another kind of thing that the community, the Millions Missing and ME Action does is the representation of missing shoes. So if you want to take a picture of empty shoes and post a picture with the hashtag #MillionsMissing on Saturday, and you can tweet that right at Francis Collins. He's the director of the NIH, who we feel is not really doing enough, has not done enough to help this community. You could tweet that at NIH, Francis Collins, and the CDC, and that would be lovely to kind of put that right in their face and say, here's even more people that want more research and research funding for this cause. Other things that you can do is you can watch the documentary, Jen Bria's documentary called Unrest. It's an amazing film. It's on Netflix. If you have that, it's on iTunes, and I'm sure another few other platforms. You can even just Google it, Unrest, and you can watch the trailer. It was on the website for a while. So if you haven't seen that, please watch it. If you're one of my friends and you haven't seen it, I'm looking right there at you. So watch that, please. Jen Bria also did a TED Talk on ME CFS. She did an amazing job, and she's our superhero. So thanks, Jen. So those are things. You can always donate to ME Action, just so go Google them. Or the Open Medicine Foundation is Dr. Ron Davis's group at Stanford that is doing so much to find a cure for us. So he's another one of our superheroes, is Dr. Davis. And if you're still with me, I know the real reason that you're watching is you want to see this critter right here. So I mentioned how lucky I am and kind of the few things that I get to do. Here's my chunky little critter that I hatched recently. This is Nina, and her and my other daughter, Lily Sarah, is some of the things that I get to do since I was blessed enough to recover. Being a mom with ME and this illness is certainly not easy. Being a mom in general is not easy, but I'm fortunate enough to have, a lot of family support, wonderful family friends, wonderful mommy's helpers that come in and help me to make sure that I'm getting the rest that I need to be able to do what I need for my family. And I'm very blessed to have, the life that I do. I very easily could have, end up in bed, and there was many times when I was so sick and in so much pain that I just didn't think I could go on. So if you're struggling with this or anything else, and you're thinking I just can't do this one more day, hang on, you know, don't give up trying. And if you're trying and nothing's working and you need a little break, just do what you got to do to get through it. You don't know if you're going to find something that could, help you. And I was at the very bottom. I lost everything, and I was able to come back enough to be sitting here talking to you right now. So for everybody out there that's watching this, thank you so much for your time. Please, keep us all in your thoughts this Saturday. Please do something that would help our community. And I wanted to just let you know, thank you, and God bless.